Welcome to this edition of the $1 Million Mastermind Podcast. This is where we pick the brains of high achievers from all walks of life and get their hard-earned, real-world insights on winning. I'm your host, Larry Weidel. So as a matter of the compounding and multiplying, which you talk about the SEO being patient, there is a certain amount of influence you can have over the flow in a system and growth, but then there's a certain amount of it is to hold. When you're fishing, this is why growing up, nobody ever taught me about fishing, and all I could see was throw the bait in the water and jerk. As soon as it would, the line would start to wiggle a little bit, you gave it a big jerk. Nobody ever explained to me, no, you've got to let the fish swallow the bait, not the first little nibble and scare the fish off. And so there's things where there's timing on these things that you just have to learn by going. It's not just getting smacked in the head by mistakes, but from successes, you learn when to be patient, when to move, when to just stay with the program. And usually the challenges come in where people want you to jump too soon into things, don't you think?
Yeah. And so, I want to make sure I'm aligned with you here. So when you say the challenges, when people want you to jump into things too soon, what do you mean by that?
Well, get you off track. When you're on track with something, it's going to mature out, 6 months, 3 months, you've been down this road before, you see the signs, it's like the corn, you plant the corn in March and it's up ankle high by the early June. And people say, oh, we need to plant something else. It's not going to happen. But, by the middle of July or end of July, it's going to be over your head,
Right.
And so you just learn to give it time, for your efforts to compound and multiply. But the leader cannot turn that over to anybody else. You've got to trust your instincts over everybody else, is what I'm kind of getting.
Correct. At. Yeah. And so, I'm sure you preach this as well. The leader's job is to handle the vision. It's, recruiting is a big thing, and financing too, whether it's raising money or figuring out how to get money into the door so that you don't have zero. But I think a good example of this would be Meta with Mark Zuckerberg. When mobile was a big thing, it was an entire rallying cry to say, hey, everything should be focused on mobile. If you bring up something else other than mobile, I'm done. Or you look at Peter Thiel, when someone starts to talk about something other than the mission, he just leaves the room. And so I think it's really important to think about the mission. You got Elon talking about going to, the main mission for SpaceX is we're going to go to Mars, and that's it.
Right. And
so what is the mission? And being that annoying kind of cheerleader that has to remind everyone about the mission all the time. Cliche as it sounds, and as much as I hated reading about that type of stuff, it is true. You have to keep repeating yourself.
Well, and it's much easier if you have that built into some of your presentations that your second and third string managers are doing and passing on to the people they're bringing in, because that kind of reinforces it. They talk themselves into it. It's like even financial services, we would have you'd have someone in the office that didn't believe in a particular product, and nothing wrong with the product. They just always sold something else. And so somebody calls the office, they want, they need this product. So you call that guy up and say, go sell them this. I don't like that. Go sell them it anyway. Go make the presentation. And in the process, they'll come back and say, that thing was much better than I thought it was. I never really looked at it that way. And so a lot of times people are stuck in looking at things from a certain standpoint. But another thing I was going to get at was we have to, with our own selves and with our companies, we got to be in charge of it. And the thing about growth and survival is the best I've ever heard. The guy that founded our company, Art Williams, said this one time, and of course he never remembers saying it, but it imprinted on my brain. He said, you've got to get to where you instinctively know on a daily basis whether or not you're doing enough of the right things to succeed or not. you got to feel, on a daily basis, you're going through, you got to be able to feel where we've got enough going on, we're going to be all right, and the leader, when the leader is not there, the leader is not paying attention, the leader is not focused, that's the first thing to go. That awareness of the activity level and the intensity level and the attitude level of the team. And do you find yourself constantly monitoring those things with your organizations?
Yeah, now I can say yes. I mean, there's the 4 R's I talk about. It's to, having good reach, making sure you're retaining your clients and your people. And then there's revenue, driving revenue, obviously. And so it's reach, retention, revenue, and recruiting. Those are the kind of the 4 R's in my mind. And so I would say short answer is yes, I absolutely agree. But I think again, people, I don't, the entrepreneurial ADD, I'll just say, is a very real thing. And the sooner you get over that, the sooner you will be on a clear path to success.
Well said. Let me ask you about you and Neil doing that marketing school, the marketing school podcast, right? I've actually had that down. That's one of the few that I've had downloaded for years in my podcast. I can't listen. There's a limited number I can listen to, but I have had that one coming in regularly for years. How is that? How many years has that been now?
We're coming up on 7 years.
And that's a fast-paced presentation. How do you guys get that energy up and maintain that, that content?
Yeah. So Neil looks at business as a game as well. And I've actually had him take this personality test that Ray Dalio and this psychologist, Adam Grant, put together. And it actually shows our energy, and we're both kind of maxed out on it. So he's working all the time. I'm working all the time. We just look at it as a game. He'll call me randomly. I'll call him randomly too. I just saw him last week. Point being is that we're like really run and gun on this one. There's no clear schedule. Like I just messaged him today, hey, like let's record on Friday. Boom, let's do this. Hey, let's try this over here. And so we're both very open-minded. We don't really have any sacred cows. And that podcast started because I was walking with him one day in the LA area, not far from here, 7 years ago. And I had talked about how podcasting has been so beneficial to me because I had actually started my first podcast 10 years ago from this date.
Okay.
And then he turned to me, totally misinterpreting me. And he turned to me and said, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, yeah, let's do it. I think business school is a good name. And I was like, oh crap, he wants to start a podcast. And so that's how we started it.
And so, how has that impacted you having that focus and the great thing about writing books, doing podcasts, putting on presentations like that is it causes you to think specifically. And, in a teacher learning situation, the teacher learns. You're having to put it into words and remind yourself. But how has that impacted your business?
Yeah. How's it impacting my memory, or is that what you said?
No, your business in terms
my business.
Keeping you focused in on the fresh, latest and greatest ideas.
I would say with single grain and marketing school, those have actually been, and you actually brought this out of me just right now. It didn't occur to me that those are the two things I've been working on consistently for the last, X amount of years. Same thing with my other podcast. So it's the two podcasts and the agency. And it has been beneficial in the sense that one, our audiences continue to compound there. So we get close to $2 million a month for the marketing school podcast. And we have great advertisers. That's allowed us to, Neil and I were actually speaking at a conference in Dubai together. And so early in the morning, he was on the main stage, and then early afternoon, I was on the main stage. And then right after that, we actually got, pushed over into doing a live marketing school episode. So that's actually happening now, where this year, that's going to happen 3 times. Like we're speaking at the HubSpot conference. We're going to be on the podcast stage too. And so we kind of have this little micro influence in the world of marketing. And that's kind of all we need, because those are the two businesses that we focus on. So,
yeah. And what is your take? And of course, it began organically. You described it. But what's your take on doing a podcast by yourself and doing a podcast with a like-minded, high-energy friend?
Yeah. So for me, when I do my own podcast, it was mostly an interview podcast before, and now we mostly repurpose a lot of the stuff I throw onto YouTube, which is just my thoughts that I'm articulating. So
Yeah.
it is actually more work for my own stuff because there's more preparation involved.
Right.
But with the marketing school podcast, we just riff. So I'll throw in like 10 ideas and he'll edit them a little bit and then we'll riff on them. And just recently, because we've gotten some negative reviews on the riffs, we're like, you know what? Why don't we try doing some reaction podcast where we react to the news each week? That takes us about 45 minutes. And that has been, we've gotten raving reviews around that. So we're just going to do that more. So I would say still, even when we're reacting to the news, we're just having a conversation like you and I are right now.
Right.
The solo stuff is harder.
Yeah. Interesting. And it's really, interesting to point out that the iteration or improvement of what you're doing never ends. Like there you are, you've been doing this 7 years, and now it's like, okay, now we're going to change up how we're doing it based off feedback. And I guess with 2 million downloads, you're likely to get some pretty clear feedback.
Yeah. There are some people that really hate it when we talk about Elon Musk and they call us tech bros. There's some people that say
They call you what? They call you what?
Tech bros.
What does that mean?
Like a tech bro. Like a bro is like kind of a negative connotation. It's like, oh, the people in tech that think they're better than everyone else.
Oh, elitist, elitist.
Yeah, even though we're not really, tech bros, but that's besides the point. And then, people are, there is good feedback there saying like, hey, these guys are starting to repeat the same thing over and over because it's a freaking daily podcast.
Right.
And so, like, we're not going to do away with that, but we're going to add in the reaction stuff because they can get perspectives from two, not only marketers, but two operators, because,
Right.
he's got his 9-figure business. I have my 8-figure business. Right. And so different perspectives too.
Right. Yeah. Fantastic. Well, congratulations on that. And I'm looking forward to seeing what big thing, things, people like yourself always make bigger things happen. And because, grow or die. And when you have success, it opens the door to even bigger success far beyond whatever you're even thinking right now. And so I would encourage you to keep an open mind for that. And I think that's a waste. I'm wasting my breath. But anyway, I would, for whatever reason, I would say that to you because I think that you've got a lot of fun in front of you. And I've got high praise for what you've accomplished so far and your not only the knowledge, the focus, but also the attitude and energy and encouragement you bring along with the information. And so I want to thank you for that. And thank you for being on the podcast.
I appreciate that, Larry. I appreciate you powering through this 1 hour and 7 minutes. So love the questions.
Do you, I love to give the guests a final word. Do you have a final word that pops in your mind that you'd like to give people as a takeaway from this time?
Yeah. The two that always keep coming to mind is the Winston Churchill quote, if you're going through hell, keep going. And the other one I kind of alluded to earlier from Thomas Sowell, who's an economist. His quote is, there are no solutions, only trade-offs. So you decide which trade-offs you're okay with accepting.
Oh, two great points. Thanks so very much, Eric. Looking forward to talking to you again, hopefully soon. And enjoy Beverly Hills.
Thanks so much, Larry.
See you. Bye. Thanks for listening to the $1 Million Mastermind. If you felt there were any valuable takeaways from this episode, please take a minute and leave us a 5-star review. Your feedback is important and really helps us get the word out to a wider audience. Remember, we have a valuable webinar that is absolutely free. Register for it right now at whitealumwinning.com. Thanks for listening.